over the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star.
Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. You know, during the 2016 campaign, Trump promised to, remember, drain the swamp in order to free Washington from its influence peddlers and special interests. And now here we are in 2025, and he's back with a vengeance, promising to rid the government of waste, fraud, and abuse. What do we know? Well, Trump's become the biggest swamp monster in the swamp, and he surrounded himself with influence peddlers and special interests such as Elon Musk, who paid somewhere in the range of $270 million to get his ticket to the Kleptocrats' ball. What does all of this mean? Cherie is waiting for me to connect some dots.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me, Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. Here's the point. We have a tendency to view current events as though they occur in a vacuum, failing to understand the broader historical context in which most events take place. During each episode, usually my guests and I have probing, provocative, and in-depth discussions that connect the dots between these events and the broader historic context in which they occur, thus enabling you to better analyze and understand the events that are impacting the global village in which we live. Well, on today's episode, y'all are stuck with me. And the issue before us is Senator Bernie Sanders and AOC are on the Fight Oligarchs tour, and rightfully so. But kleptocracy needs to be discussed as well. And I am Wilmer Leon, and again, I'll be your host and your guest today. So let me start with this definition, a working definition of politics. Politics is the process that a country uses to pass laws to protect the common good and establish policies that determine the distribution of limited resources. Now, there are a lot of definitions of politics out there. There are many that are much more complex and in-depth than that. But for me, this, I think, is a very good working definition, and I have developed this. And there are two major elements of it that are, I think, very, very telling and important. One, protecting the common good, and the other, how you manage the distribution of limited resources. And it's the limitation that makes these resources so valuable. So let me give some examples. According to the Washington Post, Republican plans to end federal EV tax credits, weaken tailpipe pollution rules, and slash funding for charging stations would boost emissions, shut down factories, according to industry experts. The biggest source of greenhouse pollution in the U.S. is transportation, mostly from cars and light-duty trucks. This is according to the EPA. Experts say switching from gas and diesel engines to EVs, electronic vehicles, is the best way to limit the damage from climate change, which is expected to make people sicker, farms less productive, and countries poorer if left unchecked. And you can also look at, in terms of climate change, just over the last 2 years, look at the huge tornado that hit North Carolina. Look at the fires that we just went through in Southern California due to drought. So it's not only making people sick, making farms less productive, and impoverishing countries. We can also look at the natural devastation, the changes to our climate that we are experiencing. And so this move by Republicans is not a move that's in the best interest of the common good. That's a simple example there. Let's look at the distribution of limited resources. Tax dollars. Tax dollars are a limited resource. Clean air is a limited resource. Clean water is a limited resource. And we, as a citizenry, we're in a constant fight over access to and the distribution of limited resources. Here's an example from the Harvard Gazette. Lessons emerge as 7 thirsty states fight over Colorado River water. 7 Western states, which include some of the fastest growing in the nation, get some of their water from the Colorado River. How is it distributed is guided by a 100-year-old Colorado River Compact, which has come under intense scrutiny in recent years as a 2-decade-long drought. Didn't I just talk about that? A 2-decade-long drought has shrunk supply, even as demand for Colorado River water has expanded as many of these states are growing. What states are we talking about? Colorado, of course, New Mexico, Utah, Wyoming, Arizona, California, Colorado. I'm sorry, I mentioned Colorado, and Nevada. They are all vying for access to water from the Colorado River. Some of their needs have to do with agriculture. For example, the Imperial Valley of California, which is where a lot of your tomatoes come from, which is where a lot of your lettuce comes from. A lot of your cucumbers come from the Imperial Valley of California. Almonds come from California. So that's on the agricultural side. Then, of course, Arizona is growing. Look at how fast Phoenix, the city of Phoenix, is growing. California is expanding. So it can be from residential expansion. It can also be from the needs for agriculture. And we can't forget, in all of these states, well, not all of these states, in a lot of these states, Native Americans, they're also involved in this fight because they were here first before the colonists settled. And they're involved in this fight because the river goes through many reservations that are owned by, of course, and inhabited by Native Americans. And they have, their tribes have entered into agreements that are, hundreds of years old. And so now what you find is this fight between the Native Americans and their hundreds of year old treaties and agreements that they have formulated with the Western government, and you have new needs, new agreements as the dynamics of the country have changed. So you can never forget the interest of the Native Americans in all of this. So I just use those two things, this fight over water from Colorado, as well as this issue with greenhouse pollution and the Trump administration trying to shift the focus away from electric vehicles. And he's also doing away with the EPA. So in the first example I used, you've got the EPA talking about the huge problems that you're going to have if you go away from the focus on electric vehicles and trying to move more people in the country to electric vehicles. Donald Trump is doing away with the doing his best. He and Elon Musk and Doge, they're doing their best to minimize the relevance and the significance of the Environmental Protection Agency. So, as I said at the top, in the 2016 campaign, Trump promised to drain the swamp in order to free Washington from its influence peddlers and special interests. And here we are in 2025, and he's back with a vengeance, promising to rid the government of waste, fraud, and abuse. So where are we? Well, the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, is being reported today, is canceling a $500 million food delivery program, leaving food banks scrambling. This is from the Washington Post. The Trump administration's latest move, which follows $1 billion in cuts to food aid programs, is putting more pressure on groups who are trying to feed hungry Americans. We're not talking about USAID in this conversation. We're not talking about aid to foreign countries, American foreign aid to hungry foreigners. We're talking about $1 billion in cuts to food aid programs for hungry Americans. Food banks across the country that are already facing huge cuts to locally grown food assistance. They learned this week that the U.S. Department of Agriculture is canceling $500 million, $500 million in, I'm sorry, I got my commas confused. $500 million in expected food deliveries, further disrupting help at a time when disrupting help at a time when the need continues to rise. Vince Hall, the chief government relations officer at Feeding America, the country's largest hunger relief organization, said some local food banks and food pantries were told that the USDA deliveries of commodities such as cheese and meat are being canceled, at least temporarily. Folks, the Trump administration is canceling food deliveries to some of the most needy Americans in the country. And if you think about it, I haven't done any research to this point, but if you think about it, I would venture to guess a lot of the people who are seeing the deliveries of commodities such as cheese and meat are being canceled voted for Donald Trump. How do I know this? Why do I think this? Because look at where these folks will live. They'll live in the Midwest. They'll live in rural America. A lot of the states that voted for Donald Trump. So let's look at this. Because food prices aren't going down. Food prices are going up. It's costing the average American more to feed their families. Now, let's look at some USDA data. What's the average weekly grocery bill for an American family of four? According to the USDA, the average weekly grocery bill in the United States for a family of four fluctuates between $150 and $300. This is data from January 27th of this year. It costs between $150 to $300 to feed a family of four in the United States. And that variance, of course, depends on dietary preferences, dietary needs, dietary restrictions. Do you like Cocoa Puffs or do you like Cheerios? Those types of things. The cost for feeding a family of four was between $146 and $289 a week in October of 2023. That was USDA data as well. So that's why I'm saying, that's why I know. And also, I spend a lot of time at the grocery store. Prices are on the rise. And so in the midst of costs going up due to inflation as one element of this, price gouging is another element of this. Bird flu, and having to eliminate flocks of birds, poultry, meaning your dozen eggs have gone from $2.75 a dozen to $12, $14, $16 a dozen. Amidst all of this crisis and chaos, the Trump administration is cutting $500 million in food deliveries for food banks. And this takes us to some of the conversation that I was having yesterday with Margaret Kimberly, as a lot of folks, particularly white folks in the United States, are sitting back scratching their head saying, wait a minute, time out, pump the brakes. There's a flag on the field. I didn't vote for this. I didn't vote for this. Au contraire, but you did. And what you really mean, or one of the things that you mean when you say this is, well, I voted for him, but I didn't think this was going to happen to me. Well, who in the hell do you think it was going to happen to? Us? People of color? Me? My family? What was it that made you think that you would be excluded from the impact, from the blowback? Oh, I know part of it. Part of what is leading you to believe that you were going to be excluded from this is the manner in which it was sold to you, the manner in which it was marketed to you. See, because you were told, oh, these Mexicans, they're coming across the border. They must be deported. They're criminals. And you're not Mexican. You're a white American. So he was selling you himself by telling you he was going to protect you from Mexicans. And you're not Mexican. So it ain't gonna happen to me. You were told at that Trump racist hate fest October 2024 at the Madison Square Garden that Puerto Rico is a island of garbage floating in the Atlantic, and you're not Puerto Rican. So you didn't take offense to that ridiculous racist diatribe. that some so-called comedian, Monroe Abram, thank you for that $10 super sticker. Greatly appreciate that. So you're not Puerto Rican, so you didn't take offense to that racist diatribe about Puerto Rico. So you thought, well, he ain't talking to me. He's not talking about me. And when he talked about when waste, fraud, and abuse and firing, cutting back the government, many of you focused on Washington, D.C., where the Department of Education is located, where the Social Security Administration is located, where all of these government offices are located. But what many of you fail to appreciate is that where the United States Postal Service is located, they have post offices in every city in the country. They have a Social Security office in every major city in the country. They have Department of Education offices in every major city in the country. The IRS, they have offices all over the country. So what made you think you would be protected, or your children who are just graduating from college, or your children who were a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks away from they were on their they were on their probationary period for their good government job, and they just got whacked. What made you think that you were going to be protected from that outcome, from that impact, from that blowback? Because he sold to you, and I'm speaking very generally here. I realize that I am making generalizations to make the point. I realize not everybody was thinking this way, but too many people were. You bought into the whiteness aspect of this. And now, for many people in the country, your whiteness is not protecting you. If you are living in Kentucky and you were going to a food bank in order to make some ends meet at dinner time, you were getting some vegetables, you were getting some poultry, you were getting a dozen eggs and a few blocks of cheese to help carry you over to the next week. You're living in Tennessee. You're living in Alabama. You're living in Mobile. You're living in Mississippi. And you were going to that food bank to tide you over. You were grateful for Feeding America, the country's largest hunger relief organization. And you're white. But you thought you were safe. Because what did Donald Trump tell you on the campaign trail? Quote, they're coming at you through me, end quote. That's what Donald Trump was telling you. You need to elect me so that I can protect you from them. Whoever, he never really described who them were or who them was. But he would tell you, as part of his martyr complex, he would tell you, you need me. Same thing that Netanyahu is telling the Israelis in occupied Palestine. Same thing. You need me to protect you from them. And you bought it. and you bought it. And I understand why you bought it. There were a number of reasons why you bought it, and we'll get into that in a minute. But you bought it. And now you're looking around and you're saying, hold up, Shorty, hold up, Slim, wait a minute. You're cutting $500 million, not from USAID, from Feeding America. Where am I supposed to get my government cheese? Where am and not only because you all hear me say all the time, I talk about things in the context of algebraic expressions. And what you do on one side of the equation, you have to do on the other side of the equation so that your equation is balanced. Where is the food for the program coming from? It's coming from American farmers. It's coming from American farmers. The food that goes into the Feeding America program, that goes into feeding Americans across America, doesn't come from Canada, doesn't come from Mexico, doesn't come from Peru. Maybe your avocados do. It doesn't come from Peru. It comes from the heartland of America. It comes from the Imperial Valley of California and farmers. The Department of Agriculture was paying those farmers to provide that food. And now you've cut the program, they get screwed. So, folks are angry. Folks are angry. Folks are pissed. To the highest of pistivity, folks are pissed. And with that, Robert Brown, if that's Dr. Robert Brown, the smartest man in town, thank you so much. And if not, if it's another Robert Brown, thank you anyway. Greatly appreciate that $10 super sticker, Robert Brown. So folks are angry. Trump supporters are on a rampage at town halls. And so let me do this. Let me check this here. Rovin Allen, thank you for that $5 super sticker. We need to finally accept that Donald Trump is the zeitgeist of white America. Very well put. I can't debate that with you in the least, kind sir. And you said there was one more. Mel W., thank you for that super sticker as well. So what we're finding out now, people are angry. People are pissed to the highest level of pistivity, as I said before. And where am I here now? Raven Allen. Oh, y'all are rolling today. Thank you. Raven Allen, we need the five. Oh, yeah, I just did that. Okay. Thank you. So that Donald Trump is the zeitgeist of white America. You are absolutely right. So folks are on these rampages at these town hall meetings. And so this is from the Associated Press. House Speaker Mike Johnson is encouraging Republican lawmakers to skip town halls that have been filled with protesters decrying the Trump administration's slashing of the federal government. Echoing the president's claims, this is Mike Johnson, is echoing Trump's claims that the demonstrations are fueled by professional protesters. And even if they are, that doesn't mean they're wrong. But they're not professional protesters. These are folks in the heartland of America. These are hardworking Americans that got sold a pig in a poke, and they're angry about, again, I didn't vote for this, which translates to, you weren't supposed to do this to me. So Mike Johnson is telling Republican lawmakers, ignore them. Cancel the town halls. Don't listen to these people. And this comes as these Republican lawmakers are finding themselves at a loss trying to explain these cuts, which are led by billionaire Elon Musk, allegedly the richest man in the world, his Department of Government Efficiency. And it's leaving federal workers out of jobs in communities from coast to coast. So you voted for Donald Trump, who told you we're going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, but you didn't realize your job was part of the waste. You didn't realize your daughter's job was part of the fraud. You didn't realize your mother's job was part of the abuse. You got screwed. You're getting screwed. Plain and simple. Because here's what I've seen, or what I haven't seen. Doge sends out a letter to the folks at the Department of Energy, to the folks at the Department of Education, to the folks at the Department of Transportation, and says, bye, Felicia. See you. Wouldn't want to be you. Don't go away mad. Just go away. But offers no evidence. Zero evidence. No data. No facts. Just bye, Felicia. That the people that they're firing are wasteful. That the people that they're firing have been engaged in fraud. That the programs that they're cutting, this $500 million food delivery program to feed hungry Americans, is abusive, offering zero evidence. See, what they should have done, I'm not saying that waste, fraud, and abuse don't exist in American government. It does. But how about conducting a forensic audit? Which, by the way, the Department of Defense has not been able to pass a forensic audit in like 20 years. So if you wanted to really get at waste, fraud, and abuse, instead of the Department of Education, instead of the Department of Agriculture, instead of the Department of Transportation, why didn't you start at the Department of Defense? Why didn't you go to the Pentagon? Why didn't you go to Raytheon? Why didn't you go to Lockheed Martin? Why didn't you go to SpaceX? Huh? Elon Musk, SpaceX, your company. Why don't we look at the SpaceX contracts? Why did those two astronauts have to spend 9 months in space when the Boeing and I think SpaceX capsule didn't function properly? Why don't we look there first? And I'm picking the Department of Defense again because they haven't been able to pass an audit in 20 years. I might be off on 20, but in a hell of a long time. Why the Department of Education? Again, so what you do is you get a team of auditors and you go in and you look at the programs, you look at what their missions are, you look at what they're supposed to do, and then you look at, are they performing and how are they performing? And then you come back to Congress and you say, well, this is what we found. We found in the Department of Agriculture that we've got these 15 programs, and here's how they're performing. Here's what they're supposed to do. Here's how much they're costing us. This is what we're getting from what they're costing us. And here's our recommendation of how we need to either reduce funding. You might find you need to increase funding. But they didn't do it that way. They didn't take a scalpel. You went into the hospital for knee surgery with expecting an orthopedic surgeon to use a scalpel to clean up some meniscus damage in your knee, and you woke up and your leg is gone because they didn't get Dr. Vinny Boombots to perform the knee surgery and clean up that meniscus damage in your knee. You got Elon Musk, who knows nothing about surgery, and instead of a scalpel, he took an axe to your knee and cut off your damn leg. And now you're hobbling around and you want a prosthetic, and they say, oh, we don't have any money for that. So anyway, Mike Johnson, you got these seriously pissed off people at these town halls screaming at the Republican representatives. And instead of Mike Johnson telling them, listen to the people, remember, these are elected representatives. These members of Congress are elected representatives. And what are they supposed to do? They're supposed to represent. But Mike Johnson's telling them, no, homie, don't represent, misrepresent. Don't show up. While the villagers are coming to the castle with pitchforks and torches looking for Frankenstein, don't show up. And what happens? Democrats now are jumping into the mix, jumping in, as they say in I think, is this a Washington Post piece? I think it was a Washington Post piece. As they jumping in to shine a bright light on what's happening. We've seen this movie before, Mike Johnson says at a news conference. They're professional protesters, so why should we give them a forum to do that right now? That's what Mike Johnson says. He says, we've seen this before. They're professional protesters, so why should we give them a forum to do that right now? And all Mike Johnson is doing is he's the puppet. He's repeating Trump's claim on social media that paid troublemakers are filling the Republican town halls, to which the Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries, responded, we don't need paid protesters. The American people are with us. Really, Hakeem? The American people are with you? Really, Hakeem? Hey, bruh, what numbers are you looking at? Or maybe I should ask, what numbers are you not looking at? Hakeem Jeffries, what numbers are you ignoring? Because NBC reports the Democratic Party has reached an all-time low in popularity in the latest national NBC News poll, as it searches for a path forward after the painful loss to Trump. And as the party's voters spoil for a fight between their leaders in Washington and Trump. And y'all ain't fighting. Hakeem, you're not fighting. So I don't know, the American people are with you? Have you turned around and looked behind you lately? They're not standing there, bruh. No, they're not with you. Just over a quarter of registered voters, 27%, say they have positive views of the party, which is the party's lowest positive rating in NBC News polling dating back to 1990. And just 7% say those views are very positive. Hakeem, dude, you're tripping. You're tripping, partner. The American people aren't with you. And why aren't they with you? Because you're not offering them anything. All you're doing is following the same playbook that you used to lose the election in 24. You're pointing out the obvious. All you're telling them is Donald Trump is screwing you. Yeah, we know that. Donald Trump is an idiot. Yeah, we know that. Donald Trump is an autocrat. Yeah, we know that. What are you offering them that's any different? Nothing. Here's an example. Senator Bernie Sanders has what I think is a great proposal on how to save Social Security. And we must be honest, Social Security really isn't in jeopardy. But that's a conversation for another time. So Bernie says, here's how we save Social Security. You just eliminate the ceiling on the Social Security tax. So many of you, so right now, I think it's $160,000. Your first $160,000, you pay on your first $160,000, you pay Social Security tax. On the $161st and beyond, you pay no Social Security tax. So Bernie's saying, eliminate the ceiling. Every dollar made in salary, not income, in salary, every penny made in salary will be subjected to the Social Security tax. So not only up to 160,000, but $1 million. And think about this. If you make $1 million in salary, not income, salary, you're making a hell of a lot of money. I mean, you're making goo gobs of money, stacks of cash. $1 million in salary, you're making a hell of a lot of money. So why not tax that entire salary? And here's the hook. Here's the hook. If you remove the ceiling, you can make it solvent, even though it's not insolvent. You can make it solvent. You can save Social Security. You can expand benefits. Expand benefits. Did I say you can expand benefits? Because you can expand benefits. And here's, to me, the big hook. You can lower the retirement age. You can lower the retirement age. What was the big fight in France about 2 years ago? Remember the yellow vests and remember all of the turmoil that was going on in France? One of the major issues in France was they were going to raise the retirement age. If the Democrats got behind Bernie Sanders' legislation, you could lower the retirement age I'm 65. I'm planning to work till I'm 75 because I love what I do. I don't really work. To me, if you look forward to waking up in the morning, getting out of bed and going to do what you do, and that's what I do, I don't work. I haven't worked in years because I love what I do. So, as a college professor, I love engaging with the kids. I love teaching. I'm from a Gugob's long line of teachers. My grandmother was a teacher. My mother was a college professor. I love what I do. So my son is a teacher. It's my sister is a retired. It's what Leons do. So anyway, you could lower the retirement age. Why isn't every Democrat in Congress, both the House and the Senate, why isn't every member of Congress standing behind Bernie Sanders on the steps of Congress saying, we have a plan? Yes, we are the minority party. Thank you, Ping. One, I look 45. I actually look 46, but thank you very much. Why isn't how many of you all have heard Bernie Sanders' plan about Social Security? Why isn't every Democratic member of Congress offering this as one idea? It's not the be all, end all, save all. One idea about, so we can take the Social Security issue off the map, off the docket, off the table. Even though Barack Obama put it on the table to be cut. Remember, everything's on the table. Remember that? Why aren't all Democrats on board with this one thing? Why? Because it would require an increase in a tax. It would require an increase in the Social Security tax. Meaning, and it wouldn't mean you change the rate. What it would mean is you change the application of the tax. But it solves the problem. Not only does it solve the solvency problem, it solves a couple of other problems. It solves the benefits element problem by increasing, not decreasing benefits. And it also solves part of the retirement age problem. Because right now, they're playing around with, once again, raising the retirement age. You could lower the retirement age. And there are no hidden issues in this solution. There are no landmines in this solution. What I have just articulated to you is the problem and the solution. And it's a very simple thing to do. Lower the retirement age to 63. So that if I want to retire at 63, lower the retirement age to 64, whatever the number is. I don't know what the number would be, but I know it will be lower than it is now. And that's a good thing. Why shouldn't I be able to enjoy the benefits of my hard work for a longer amount of time for the time that I have left on the planet? Why? I shouldn't be living to work. I should be working to live. So that's just an example. Dr. Nick, 59? Cool. 59 it is. Folks, Dr. Nick Riviera has just proclaimed 59 as the age. So I now proclaim 59 is the age. Raven Allen, thank you very much. State-owned enterprises could be created and utilized to pay for much of what we need to provide for our people. But where do they get their funding? See, a lot of this, folks, goes back to the Reagan administration. You got to, again, connecting the dots. You've got to understand that a lot of what you're experiencing today didn't start with Donald Trump. He's not that smart. What you are experiencing is the culmination of the insanity that started with Ronald Reagan. The deinstitutionalization of people, closing hospitals, putting people on the street, all of those kinds of things. A lot of the less than healthy people that we see living in tents under overpasses, a lot of that dynamic started the whole idea of Reaganomics. Donald Trump's tax scheme, Donald Trump's tax fraud about cutting the taxes for the wealthy, and that's going to stimulate manufacturing because the wealthy are going to reinvest their money into that's BS. That was called Reaganomics. Thank you, Larry Hooks. That was called Reaganomics, which, by the way, his opponent at the time, George H.W. Bush, who wound up becoming his vice president, called it voodoo economics. It was voodoo economics then. It's voodoo economics then. It's voodoo economics now. Raven Allen, thank you. It's much like China. They get their funding from the government. State-owned enterprises in China are potent. Absolutely right. But here's the thing, Raven. You're right. But China has a planned economy. And here, because we have a so-called a market-driven economy, remember, where is the book? Okay, I can't find the book. It's probably on the other side in the bookcase on the other side. Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, and market-driven economies. Remember the invisible hand, and the market will decide winners and losers. China has a planned economy where the government plays a very, very clear role in determining what's made, how much it costs, right? It's planned. It makes sense. We're here in the West with our so-called market-driven economy, and we're growing not even at 2% GDP. We claim China is in a recession when their economy doesn't grow at 6%. So you tell me, 6%? or 2%. And you're talking growth. I've taken a lot of math in my educational career. I think 6% growth is better than 2% growth. Y'all can check with some other economists. Political economy was my first area when I pursued my PhD. Political economy was my first area. So, but you can call Dr. Desai, call Dr. Tawhid, ask them, Dr. Leon said that 6% growth in GDP is better than 2% growth. We want to be sure that he's right. EA, do I think African Americans could have a successful Gary convention, or are we too scattered politically to unite? EA, I think we could have a very successful Gary convention. It would depend upon who you would be expecting to convene it, I believe. If you're expecting the Congressional Black Caucus to convene a Gary convention, ain't gonna happen. But remember, the Gary Convention was a grassroots operation. The Gary Convention was a convening. It was called the Gary Political Convention, but it was a grassroots-driven event. So you had Black communists, you had Black nationalists, you had Amiri Baraka, you had Richard Hatcher, you had all kinds of folks from the broad Black political diaspora in the country at the convention. So EA, I think we not only could we have one, we are in dire need of one. But again, EA, to me, the question becomes who would be the convener of it. So if you're looking for the Black Caucus to convene it and you want to watch it on MSNBC, well, that's a lost cause, right? And I'm not saying that you are. I'm just giving you what I think would be the extremes of this. If you are expecting the Black Caucus to convene this event and you want to sit back and watch it on MSNBC, then nah, you're not going to get, all you're going to get are the same talking, quacking ducks that you get right now. So it's got to be a grassroots event, and the mission of the event has to be very clearly defined on the front end. Because if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. My audience from inside the issues would, this thing is moving, increase my audience on this platform by the hundreds of now thousands. I agree. There are some conflicts, with me promoting this on XM. I get your point. Thank you very much. And folks, all we need are subscribers to YouTube. We need those of you that are watching this, that are listening to this on varying outlets. We need you to subscribe to this on YouTube, because remember, I'm doing this for you, but we can't do this without you. And there's another super sticker. Hang on, let me see. See, I'm in a secret undisclosed location. SK Simmons, $5. Thank you. SK Simmons would love for me to do a deep dive on the philosophy and influence of tech bros like Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel. Oh, well, you know what? This is not a deep dive, but thank you, because thank you, SK. SK, are you channeling your inner Wilmer Leon? Or maybe I'm channeling my inner SK Stevens, because, boys and girls, it's important to understand. It's important to understand, and thank you, because this takes me back to the oligarchy and the kleptocracy points. And I'll do this, and then I won't belabor this much longer. So You've got Bernie and AOC on their anti-oligarchy tour, which they should be on. Because remember, an oligarchy is a form of government where power rests with a small number of people. That's an oligarchy. And yes, that is what we are experiencing right now. But and these oligarchs, they will have some type of similarity, something that binds or bonds them: nobility, fame, wealth, education. So what we have right here, I think, to a great degree, with the oligarchs that have taken control of this country, are wealth and white supremacy. I would say those are the two things, two major elements of many that bind these people together. Their wealth and their belief in white supremacy. But I also think that Bernie needs to, not only, in AOC and others, not only do they need to be talking about the oligarchy, they also need to be talking about the kleptocracy. 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 Kleptocracy, which also is referred to as thievocracy. Thievocracy. It's the government whose corrupt leaders, or kleptocrats, are using their political power to expropriate or steal the money, the wealth of the people. So Bernie's right. On the oligarchy part, you've got a small number of people that have wrestled power away from the government to themselves. But the other element of this that Bernie isn't articulating is they are stealing the money. When you have Donald Trump on the lawn of the White House selling Teslas, when you have the President of the United States on the lawn of the White House selling cars, and he's not selling Fords, he's not selling Chryslers, he's not selling Ramblers. I know they don't make them anymore. He's not selling DeSotos. I know they don't make them anymore. He's selling Teslas. For who? For who? He's selling Teslas for Elon Musk, who spent $270 million to get the ticket to the kleptocrat ball so he could dance with Donald Trump. You need to talk about anybody familiar with the PayPal mafia? This is what S.K. Simmons is getting to. Anybody here familiar with the PayPal mafia? Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, David Sachs. Peter Thiel, German-born billionaire and venture capitalist who was raised in South Africa, helped to start PayPal. He was educated in a South African city in the 70s where Hitler was still openly venerated. They walked around saying Heil Hitler and giving the Nazi salute and all that kind of crap. That's Peter Thiel. David Sachs was the COO at PayPal. He's now a leading fundraiser for Donald Trump. Where is he from? Wait for it. Wait for it. South Africa. He's from Cape Town. Where is Elon Musk from? South Africa. And there's another one, Roelof Botha. These are all they call them the PayPal mafia. Roelof Botha Ever heard of Pick Botha, South African foreign minister? Roloff Botha is his grandson and former CFO of what? Wait for it, PayPal. Now, Roloff Botha keeps a lower profile than David Sachs and Peter Thiel, and obviously Elon Musk. But they call this crew the PayPal Mafia. And these are the kleptocrats that are part of the oligarchy that Bernie Sanders is. See, SK, you didn't think I could go there that quickly, but I was preparing to go there. Elon Musk, this is from New Line magazine. Elon Musk and other tech moguls with roots in the apartheid era South Africa have been shaped by the history of right-wing white nationalism. These are the folks that have the ear of the President of the United States. And that's why this DEI conversation is going away to the degree that it is. And that's why I started out the conversation. SK just got me to the conclusion a little faster as I'm running out of time. Trump promised to drain the swamp in 2016, and now we're in 2025, and he's now talking about waste, fraud, and abuse. But when you look at Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and Roloff Botha and the other one I forgot to mention, they're why and how Donald Trump has become not the drainer of the swamp, but the biggest swamp monster in it. And this is why, again, when you have the President of the United States on the lawn of the people's house selling cars, turn it into a car lot. You've got Donald Trump with his crypto business. And what is he doing? He's deregulating the crypto business so that he and his group of thieves can steal more money. See, I'll say this, then I'll wrap this up for today. The first thing that Donald Trump did, if you remember, was got rid of the inspector generals in the agencies in the government. The inspector generals, they're the cop on the beat. They're the independent entity within an agency where you go when you find waste, fraud, and abuse. You file a complaint with the IG's office, and the IG, the inspector general, I know this because my father, at his last job in his career, he was the inspector general for the California state prison system. I know what my father did. I know how well my father did his job. And so the IG is the independent cop on the beat in an agency that is responsible for overseeing any type of abuse within the agency. So what's the first thing that Donald Trump does? He comes in and gets rid of the IGs. Well, if you want to rob a bank, the first thing you'd want to do is get rid of the cops outside. Once you get rid of the cops outside, now you can go in and rob the bank. You don't need a gun. All you need is a cart to put the cash on. And so these oligarchs / kleptocrats, this is what you have to start paying attention to. This is the language we have to start using. These are the names that we have to continue to recite, because these are the ones that are involved in the thievery. Why does Donald Trump want to shut down the Department of Education? I think for a couple of reasons. One, to further privatize education at the state level. Privatize with your charter schools and all this other kinds of stuff. The privatization of public education. You want to steal public tax dollars that are designated for education and put them in the hands of private individuals. You don't need charter schools. Improve the damn system. Oh, the system in Detroit is so bad, I've got to bust my behind as a middle-class working parent to put my child in a better school. No, improve the school system with the available dollars. Donald Trump, we don't need a new what is the thing he just signed? He just announced? Where'd it go? He just signed to pay for a new, God dang it, I just wrote it down. To pay for some new fighter plane. A new fighter plane. You don't need that fighter plane. What you need is to educate some kids. The 6th generation fighter jet. That's what it is. Okay. I'm bringing it home. He's closing the Department of Education, but just announced to fund the 6th generation fighter jet. He says he wants to push education down to the states. Education is already at the states, Slim. You don't know that? You don't know that. Here's another reason why he wants to do this. They're already starting to rewrite the history books, talking about the election that he lost and how he didn't lose the election. There are states that are already starting to do this. He's closing the Department of Education when according to the most recent data, U.S. students ranked 28th out of 37 from the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. That's all the democratic industrialized nations. They collect data on education and they compare notes. And in these countries, 37 of them, the United States, U.S. students ranked 28th out of 37 in math. 28 out of 37 in math. And you're closing the Department of Education. We ranked 12th out of 37 of these OECD countries in science. And you want to close the Department of Education. What about American exceptionalism? What about American as the indispensable nation? And our kids are ranked 28th out of 37 countries in math. We can't do math compared to our international competitors. But you want to close the Department of Education. You've got Elon Musk and Peter Thiel wanting to expand the number of H-1B visas so you can bring more foreign engineers into the country. Why? Because you claim you don't have enough American-born and trained engineers to fill these high-tech software and programming jobs, but you want to close the Department of Education. Folks, that logic is, it doesn't make any, it's not logic. It doesn't make any sense. It's counterintuitive. It's what's the other word I want? Anyway, it doesn't make any sense. It's BS. Privatizing education. No, don't privatize education. fund it more. There should be more government oversight of education, not less government oversight of education. Because if you, again, we're 20, what did I say we were? We're our kids 28th out of 37 in math. Look at those other countries. Look at the other countries that are ahead of us. And see how many of those countries have centralized government control over education in their countries. You need more government involvement, not less, when it comes to education. But see, part of this comes from the ultra right wing. Oh, you want parents to control the curriculum of their kids, of what their kids are taught? The reason you have so many stupid kids in the United States is because their parents are stupid. I'll say that again. That's why you have so many crazy kids in the United States, is because their parents are crazy. And now you want these crazy parents to be in control of education, even though they are not experts in it. And I know this because my son is what? An education major. I know this how? Because I'm a college professor. My mother was a college professor. My grandmother was a teacher. I know this, folks, because I've lived it my entire life. You want the inmates to control the asylum. When you start talking about we need more parental control over curriculum in our schools, no, you don't. And the way that you get that control, if you want it, go to a damn PTA meeting. And this I say, this is my final point. This I say to the Black community. We aren't showing up at PTA meetings. How do I know we're not there? Because when my son was in elementary school and in high school, and I was showing up and my wife was showing up, we weren't filling the room. In a school that was predominantly filled with Black and brown kids. I sent my son to public school. 12 years of public school. Because in Montgomery County, Maryland, we pay a hell of a lot of taxes. And a lot of those taxes go to education. And I wanted to get every ounce, every cent of tax dollar I was paying. So we went to public school and we policed the process. But in too many of our communities, we are abdicating our responsibility as parents by not showing up to the PTA meetings and controlling the schools that our children go to. That's a fact, folks. That's a fact, Jack. So we don't need less government oversight. We need more government oversight. We need to pay the teachers more. If our children are supposed to be our greatest asset, then why, when you have an asset, you invest in it. That's how the asset grows. That's how the asset acquires value, is you invest in the asset. That's what makes it an asset. But we don't want to invest in our children's education. We don't want to pay our teachers what they need to be paid, what they deserve to be paid. We don't want to put the money into the programs that should be free in school. You shouldn't have to pay extra for extracurricular activities. Your kid should, if you want to art club, you should be able to go to art club and not pay $20 to go to art club. You should just go and learn art from an artist. Anyway, I could do this all day. But it is that time. So, hey, folks, I really appreciate. Wait a minute. I'm getting a communication from an undisclosed Raven Allen. Another $5. Where did he go? We need to talk about Frantz Fanon and Pan-Africanism. Well, hang on. Before we do that, read Wretched of the Earth, Frantz Fanon. Read Toward the African Revolution, Frantz Fanon. Read Black Skin, White. See, folks, you call it, I get it. And was able to do, I knew exactly where it was on the bookshelf. Why? Because I read this stuff. You should be reading this stuff. Miss Allen, you're absolutely right. Read this stuff. There's a reason Frantz Fanon wrote it. He wrote it for you to read it. And if you read this stuff, back to AM's point, I think it's AM or EA. I'm sorry if I got you all confused about the Gary Convention. If you read this stuff, you would be organizing the convention. Final point, and this is truly my final point. And I think I've said this before, but this is very, very key. I was in Dallas. I was invited to speak at a UAW meeting in Dallas, and so one of the questions during the Q&A was, what do I recommend? And I said, the first thing y'all gotta start reading. And so this woman stands up and she introduces herself. I can't remember what her name was, but I remember her title. She was the Dallas president. She was the president of the Dallas chapter of the NAACP. And she stands up and she's very, firm and very direct. And she stands up and she says, you've been in here for an hour talking about you want the people in the room to read. I don't want them to read. I just want them to respond when I call them. And folks went, ooh. And I said, well, therein lies your problem, homegirl. Because if they were reading, you wouldn't have to call them. They'd be calling you. And you would have to respond to them. She got up and walked out. So, and that's a true story. That is a true story. And this is a woman who, again, president of the Dallas chapter of the NAACP. And anybody know Lawrence Collins? Calls into my XM show. Anybody know Lawrence Collins? Lawrence was the one that brought me to Dallas. Lawrence and his wife Sheila, they were in the room. So if you see them, you can ask them. They'll tell you. That's real talk. So anyway, with all of that being said, am I missing anything else here? No, I think we got it. Who was Shirley Chisholm? Good question. Folks, you should look up Shirley Chisholm. Out of New York, Congresswoman out of New York, first Black woman to run in a major party for president. Anyway, with all of that, folks, again, we're trying to get to 10,000 sponsors on YouTube. 10,000 sponsors on YouTube. I was hoping to get to 7,000 today. I know we didn't get there. Let me quickly look to see where we are here. And if I can do this quickly, and where are we today? No, we're not really any closer than we were on Monday when I started this conversation, which is unfortunate because this is how we're going to be able to keep this thing going and expand this thing. If you all like this, again, just think what we could do if we could really take it where it needs to go. But the only way we can do that is if you all support and sponsor the effort on YouTube by becoming subscribers and asking, what is my cash? Oh, you know what? I've had some, I see Cavett. If you can use, what's the other one? Hang on, because I've had some problems with the Cash App account. So what's the other one? The other one is oh, wait a minute. Is give me 1 second here and I'll answer the question. Zelle. Oh, if you can use Zelle, you can find me on Zelle. But hey, I'm getting a message from headquarters. So give me a second here. It's on the bottom of the screen. Oh, thank you. See, that's why I have a producer, because she knows all this stuff. There you go. It's on the bottom of the screen. Venmo, but I'm having some. So if you can use the Cash App, do it. You can go to Zelle, you can go to Venmo. Again, it's all on the bottom of the screen there. Thank you for asking. Who was it that asked? I lost track of this now. Oh, Cherie, what is a Cash App? Oh, it's another app you can use to transfer money. Anyway, so I think we got all those questions answered. Thank you all so much for joining me today and sticking with me today. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast with me, Dr. Wilmer Leon. Stay tuned. New episodes next week. We're gonna, as always, follow us on social media. All the links below are in the show description. The Cash App is there. The Venmo is there. You can look me up on Zelle if you want to direct it that way. You can do it through Bank of America and the other banks that use Zelle. Remember that this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge. That talk without analysis is just chatter, and we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all next week. Until then, over the weekend, please, folks, over the weekend, reach out to 5 people. Reach out to 5 people. Tell them about the show and ask them to subscribe via YouTube. That's how we move this rascal forward. Really need your help. Until then, I am Dr. Wilmer Leon. Have a wonderful, blessed weekend. I'll be on Sirius XM 126 tomorrow from 11 to 2. Got a hell of a lineup, but you got to go to check it out. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.